And we got to start with Bill Belichick. And you and I have done appearances on other programs, and we've talked about Bill, Chapel Bill and UNC and expectations and everything. But one thing we probably didn't anticipate was all of the craziness that's going on with these off-field storylines. He had the CBS interview and then kind of had to do a little cleanup tour there. He went on Ryan Clark's podcast, Good Morning America. He was on ESPN. He's talked about the relationship between him and Jordan Hudson, how she handles the business aspects of his life that don't relate to UNC, but it certainly feels like those things kind of commingle. It's a weird spot. And he said he's addressed it with this team. Hopefully they're ready to go there. I wanted to get your thoughts here because we talked about a guy who had extensive experience as an NFL coach. He'd won championship after championship. And it felt like college football was going to be a different challenge, certainly, but one that he could stand up to. And now we've got all this drama here. Where are you at with this?
Man, it's been absolutely crazy to watch. It's been given us plenty to cover in the media and stay on top of. But I think what's most interesting, Joshua, is like 10 years ago, if you could go back in time and say, hey, this is Bill Belichick's future 10 years from now, no one would believe you because he was the standard of media manipulation. He was the master of media and controlling narratives. And to see where he's at right now is like, it's truly unbelievable. And I guess my thoughts is sometimes, when you talk about legacy and Belichick, when the Patriots era ended, was the greatest coach of all time by a lot of people's standards, if not one of the greatest coaches of all time. And what you see sometimes is the greats, they hold on a little too long.
Yeah.
That next final chapter, maybe they relax a little bit. And certainly making $10 million a year. And now you're getting to coach with your son. There's plenty of reasons. And maybe he doesn't care about his legacy. I don't believe that. I think he does care about his legacy. He's got to be real careful. And certainly it's become a messy situation. But at the end of the day, too, though, hey, if he's happy in his relationship, isn't that what really matters? I don't think he wants to be dealing with all this mess. But, shoot, man, if he's happy in the relationship, isn't that what matters at the end of the day?
Well, that's what matters to him, right? Like that's what probably matters to his inner circle and people close to him. And now that gets a little bit funky too. As you mentioned, he's coaching with his son, Steve. Like part of his inner circle is certainly invested in how this thing goes at UNC as well. But the people cutting his checks certainly don't care about his personal happiness. They just want him to win games. They brought him in there to replicate some of the magic that he had with the Patriots. True. And I think that's where it's getting tough. Now, UNC has put out statements. They've been behind their coach, which is the way that they should appear publicly. I'm just very curious what the conversations are like behind closed doors, because this is definitely something that is strange. Now, one of the things that I saw this week, The Athletic talked to some ACC coaches off the record, and one of the coaches had a quote that said, the folks that came up in college football want to kick his ass. Right. And I think there's this idea that people have talked about where he's got the Super Bowl rings. They think of college football as this product that is well below the NFL. Guys who go from college to the NFL, they don't do very well with a handful of exceptions. And a guy coming from the NFL should just be able to come in and win right away. I've always felt that the NFL and college football are two completely different sports. They're very different products, but just the way that you have to approach it is different. And now you're starting to hear that there are people within this business that want to embarrass Bill Belichick essentially because they don't want people to feel like guys from the NFL can just drop in on their sport and have success right away. So when you hear a coach talk about Bill in that way, what are your thoughts?
That doesn't surprise me at all. And I would be shocked if that surprises Bill Belichick. That's just, he's had a target on his back everywhere he's been since, some of those early scandals with the New England Patriots, right? That's just, and that's also part of being a champion too, is you're going to have a target on your back. That's part of having a $10 million paycheck. You're going to have a target on your back. So that doesn't surprise me. And I completely agree with you that this is a different game, because on one end, I immediately think situationally, Bill Belichick is one of, if not the best situational coach in college football. Like all
Right.
those thin margins that can make a difference, Bill is going to be dialed in. But the problem is you're dealing with college kids. So how well can he communicate? And you're dealing with NCAA rules. How well can you communicate
Well, are you
to
really dealing with NCAA rules? Because
I,
it seems like
yeah,
people are just doing their own thing.
sure. But I guess in the sense of now these kids, rather than in the NFL, their entire day and
Right.
lives are dedicated to, learning these things. Now kids got class and they have NIL responsibilities, so they're juggling a lot more things on top of being 18 to 22 years old. So I think the big advantage that Bill would bring is that those thin margins that can make a difference. Some of that gets lost dropping down to the college level. Also, the truth is, Joshua, just like the talent discrepancy,
Yeah.
especially today, decides winning. It's just the reality of our game. Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, all these great teams that are recruiting consistently well. Clemson this year, there's just a talent discrepancy that UNC, they're not going to benefit from. So I again, some of that situational benefit that Bill Belichick is going to bring in is going to get lost because they aren't going to have the talent to compete at a high level. To bring it all the way back home, when you're paying a guy $10 million a year, there's a
Right.
target on his back. I wonder the level of patience that administration's going to have. But I also saw an article the other day. Didn't they sell out all their season tickets
Sure
already?
they
Like,
did.
maybe, so you're saying there is the Dion effect here of the
Right.
star power of Bill Belichick.
And to your point, what we saw from Dion is, barely 500 as a coach, and they're paying him as one of the top 5 coaches allegedly in college football, right? So like all of the other things do matter. The fan base getting involved matters. Selling out your stadium matters. Season tickets matter. And so
And
I
people
think
love to
that
hate.
they do. They
So
do. And
this doesn't have to be a positive experience that translates to money. It could
it
be
does
a
not.
people love to hate that translates to money.
It just has to translate to the money. I agree with you there. It's interesting too. You brought up the talent discrepancy, and I feel like that's being undersold. And a lot of people, I think, initially believed that Bill Belichick was just going to be able to go into recruits' living rooms or go into high schools and flash the rings and to be able to get the guys. And we've seen the rosters turn over. Certainly, he's got 30 transfers in, but he's also lost some good players in the portal. In the NFL, there is development that happens on a roster. And I will say that Bill Belichick probably did as good of a job as anybody as getting guys who are undrafted, as getting guys who are low draft picks, of finding the dudes who maybe didn't have the draft buzz and taking them and making them into better players than what folks thought they could be. But there's still only like a certain amount of variance that you have to deal with in terms of that development. The gap isn't as wide when you're dealing with kids at UNC, and I'm not talking about like, you're dealing with a group of 5 kid, but when you're dealing with kids at UNC, certainly the gap of development is wider than what the coaches at Ohio State or Georgia or Texas have to do. They've got guys who can
Yeah.
come in that are 5-star freshmen and they can be all Americans right away. And so I am curious to see what that's going to be like just in terms of a player development standpoint for Bill Belichick, where the NFL isn't necessarily known as a league for development.